I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Recently, I did a comparison of two cameras from Foxeer, the venerable Foxeer Monster and the brand new Foxeer Predator, and I compared them with the RunCam Eagle. The Eagle 2 Pro, I think, was the exact Eagle I used. And as always, there was some feedback on things I did right and things that you guys thought I could have done better. And one of the things you guys thought I could have done better was not test the cameras on their stock settings, but try to optimize the settings for each of the cameras. Well, today we're going to do that. Stay tuned. If we start here, then we could see that the problem I complained about, the kind of lack of detail in shadows, kind of muddy shadows, is definitely there. Especially when the sun's in the sky, the exposure goes down and the shadows just become really lack a lot of definition. If we go over here, the exposure opens up a little bit and we do get some shadow detail like right here, for example. But overall, I think like here, for example, the sun's not in the sky and you're getting really no shadow detail at all in the house. So let's try some of the things that might make this better. And one of the things people said I needed to do was, change this exposure to BLC, backlight compensated. It does seem like that's made a tiny improvement. Here in the trees, let's try backlight compensated, but let's turn it up. And we can see on high, it definitely is making a difference here. But it doesn't seem to be improving the dynamic range as a whole, so much as it is ignoring the sun in the sky and raising the exposure in total. Still, I feel like this is an improvement. Let's set that on middle. I feel like that's an improvement. And if we look over here at the house, though, we still really have not at all improved. Just the sort of muddy lack of detail there. Wide dynamic range. Now let's see what the effect of changing that is. In theory, that should improve our shadow detail. If we turn that up to middle and then high. And yeah, it does seem like there's an improvement there. Low. Yeah, it's definitely improving shadow detail. It's also, however, if you look like right here, it's also washing out the... Right, so you look at it on low, and you can just see a little bit of detail here on the driveway at the edge of the grass. But if I turn this up, you can see that becomes overexposed and washed out. So it is improving the shadow detail, but it is not so much increasing the dynamic range as a whole. It's more, again, here, let's try the example here. Look over here at this overexposed area in the trees. If we go down, some of those details come back. It doesn't feel like we're so much improving the dynamic range as we are changing the exposure algorithm to, or maybe changing the gamma curve. I don't know what the right term is, but does it do anything about the muddy details on the house? Not really, maybe a tiny bit. I can just start to see the slats in the wood that I know are there. But look at the roof here. What happens when we go... Yeah, see, right here I can see the individual shingles, whereas here, now the shingles are gone and I'm just starting to see some detail in the house. So it doesn't feel like we're increasing the dynamic range as a whole so much as we are just shifting the exposure curve. I'm not sure I would call that an improvement. I like seeing both highlight and shadow details. So then we'll go into image adjust and we will start to play with this stuff. Now, sharpness is sharpness, and we turn that up, presumably we would start to see... Oh, this is a really annoying thing about the Monster. When you hold down the button on the joystick, it goes into... It starts configuring the OS. That's how you configure the OSD, is to hold down the button when you're not in the menu, and you can move the OSD items around. But if you hold down the button when you're in the menu, it goes into configuration mode. That's pretty much a bug. A camera shouldn't do that. I hope Foxeer will fix that. So I don't remember what the default was on that, but let's just turn that. I think it was at 80. That's HDNR. That's not even what I meant to be messing with. Sharpness, if we turn that up, I'll go in spurts here so I don't activate the OSD. We should see that shimmer comes out much like the Eagle. Let's see how bad we can make it. People have said that the shimmer on the Eagle is not because of sharpening, but because of a thing called pixel binning. Pixel binning is a way of resizing the picture very quickly, but it's a very poor way of doing it and results in that shimmer that we see. That's what I speculate that's one way they got the latency of the Eagle down. Here, if we turn the sharpness all the way up on the Monster, We do see an increase if you look like in the gravel down here. There's an increase in the shimmer, but it's nowhere near as bad as it is on the Eagle, even on the Eagle's best day. And because presumably it's not doing pixel binning. Turn that down where it was. Now, can we get some of that detail out by messing with the settings in the, there's not really a brightness. See, we've got red gain, and we've got green gain and blue gain. Now, those are used to control the color balance, the white balance, but we don't actually have anything like brightness or anything like that. We just have contrast. And if we turn the contrast up, as you would expect from an increase in contrast, the shadows get darker, and actually we really completely lose shadow detail. So then if we turn the contrast down, and I did this, although I didn't show it in the previous video, the picture gets really washed out, but we still don't get any of that detail back. So this is really pretty much as good as I felt like I could make this camera look. Maybe we could go to wide dynamic range middle, and then we could still lose a little highlight detail, but have better shadow detail. Maybe that'd be a good compromise. Okay, so with that being done, now let's go inside and get the Predator, because I'm really excited to see what we can do with the Predator. I think it's got a lot of potential. Let's go get it. What I really want to try to address first is this blue cast, and I'll do that under Picture Adjust in the menu, and there is a hue and color gain setting. So if we go to hue should let us adjust between blue and I guess magenta. Let's see what happens when we change it. Let's just keep going until you notice it getting wacky. An annoying thing about this camera is how freaking slow the menu is. Yeah, menus move. The menus move so slow if you hold down the button. I don't know if that's... This looks pretty good to me, I think. My gut feeling is like the ground, if I keep going, you can really... Now I feel like I start to see it really becoming magenta. So let's back that off. What was the default? I think it was 90. And now we're much more into a neutral color palette, but we still got this really blue cast on other things. So, and even if I go crazy high, it's almost like the shadows are kind of bluish and green, and it's not really fixing that even after the highlights are way magenta. So it's almost like there's some kind of a curve where the color is not consistent across the whole luminosity range, the whole brightness range, where shadows have a different color balance than highlights. Still, I feel like maybe we could go just a smidge more, but it's not really fixing the problem that we're trying to fix. Yeah, it isn't. So let's just set that back to defaults. So then, what does color gain do? That should just be saturation, I think, as a whole. Make the picture more saturated. Just keep turning it up until you notice a difference. This doesn't seem to be changing the color balance at all. Yeah, I can see in the green and the grass, it's really making the image more saturated, but you could see that as a little bit of an improvement. It's more a matter of taste, I think. But we still have this really blue cast in the shadow that just doesn't seem to want to go away. Now, what else is there? There's brightness. If we turn the brightness up, another thing people noticed was that the image was kind of washed out. So if we turn the brightness down, I think we can get rid of that washout. Oh, wow! Actually, I think that's really improved the blue cast. Wow, that is a real improvement. So much more contrasty. But are we losing shadow detail? Shadow detail, of course, is one of the things that's most impressive about these cameras, the ability to get shadow detail and highlight detail at the same time. To test that, let's go aim up here. Yeah, that's a good test. We'll aim and look at the underside of my porch as well as so look at the underside of the porch, but also as the roof here where we've got highlights and shadows. And notice again, look at the shadows here. There's like blue in the shadows. Do you see that? I think that's just something to do with this image, with this thing. So again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to reset it. This is the default. And if we check the brightness down, we get, I feel like that's an improvement. We're losing a little bit of shadow detail, but the image as a whole just looks way more contrasty, even more saturated almost, because when you bring the black level down, you get more colors. And it almost feels like the blueness is gone as well. Look at the shadows here. We've kind of lost the WDR effect, haven't we? Like if I bring the brightness back up, the picture gets a little more washed out, but it does feel like some of the shadow detail comes back a little bit. Whereas if I bring it down here to like 111, now you can definitely start to see that you're losing detail in the shadows. Although the picture does, now it just starts to look like a really good looking CMOS camera almost. It is a really spectacularly good looking image though. It really is. And when I say that it looks like a CMOS camera, but that's not it's like the best CMOS camera you've ever seen. It doesn't have the sort of ultra wide dynamic range. Like the Eagle definitely beats it for dynamic range. But many people don't like that look anyway, and they just want a really good looking CMOS camera. I would almost say to give this a try. It's really just fantastic. Fantastic, honestly. Well, I think this is a really nice image. I would fly with this. What I would really like to compare this to is something like the Rotor Riot Runcam Swift, which is a really good CMOS or CCD camera. Let's try that. So here's my QAVR. I've been flying this frame for so freaking long. I kind of can't believe it. I've changed out all the hardware. In fact, if I still got the Betaflight F3, I think it's still got the Betaflight F3 on there, but I've changed just about every damn thing out on it, but I still keep the frame. Go figure. And it's got the Rotor Riot Runcam Swift V2 on it, and it is, I think, one of the best looking CCD cameras that you can get. So here, looking into the sun, we definitely, we've got a problem here because the sun is bouncing into the camera and is really washing out the lens. But the Predator did the same thing and looked really good, so maybe it's more a function of the lens than it is the camera. The shadows are getting sort of washed out. We're not seeing really black shadows here, but we are getting a little bit of shadow detail like over in the wood pile. Less colorful image. It's a way more contrasty image. There's all the little white details here are getting really blown out. I think that's a question of the tuning of the camera. I think the Rotor Riot guys did that on purpose because, like if you look at the light hitting the edge of this tree here, that bright white edge there can help you when you're flying not crash into things. I've seen the Rotor Riot guys tune the camera like this before. I think it's just a choice that they make. If we go over here, the color certainly isn't as good. That just could be the color balance, and that may be adjustable. We've got a very red color, and it's not as rich in the sort of greens and reds and everything that you saw in the other camera. I said the Predator looks like a really great-looking CCD camera, but actually, having looked at a really great-looking CCD camera, I disagree. I think the Predator looks way better. Maybe I could tweak what are you? A Swift RunCam, Rotor Riot Runcam Swift. Maybe I could tweak that a little bit to get it a little better, but I think no, I don't think it's going to get there. Oh, and before you guys take me to task in the comments for running the Rotor Riot Swift at factory defaults, please remember that that is a Swift that has been hand-tuned by the Rotor Riot guys, so its factory defaults are a custom tune, okay? So then, by way of rounding this up, let me just give you a quick look at the RunCam Eagle 2 Pro and the RunCam Eagle 2. And these are in, as I fly them condition. They've been tweaked, of course, as well. So here is the Eagle 2. Oh, geez, props are on. This is not good. This is not good. Oh, my God. Are you serious? Shut up. With your motor beeper. Shut up. Oh my gosh. Oh. So much running back and forth. It's insane. So this is the RunCam Eagle 2. Not the Eagle 2 Pro, but the Eagle 2. and it looks a little out of focus. I think that is just because I've got the sharpening turned way down to try and kill some of the digital noise from the binning. Here it looks pretty washed out, but that is, as I showed you before, just because of the sun. Look here, see the contrast comes right back in. Here, looking at the house, you can see right here, you can see the individual slats in the house, and even a little bit up here, you can kind of just barely make out the vertical slats there. You can't very easily from here see the individual shingles, and I think if you compare that to the Predator, you'll see that that the ship Predator can. And again, some of that is because I've got the sharpening turned way down. So that's the Eagle 2, a regular Eagle 2. And here is the Eagle 2 Pro. Again, the sun being where it is challenging us a little bit. There we go. There's the woodpile view. And if we go over here, it's a little different. This is with the sharpening turned down. This is not with the exact factory stock settings. Everything else is pretty much the same though. I think this is a more colorful image than the Eagle 2. We could turn the saturation up in the Eagle 2 a little bit, but there's only so much that's going to do. Here's this view. Just looking out at this view, man, I really think the Eagle 2 Pro just destroys everybody else. Yeah. There you go. Wow. Beautiful clouds today. How about that? Yeah, it got so much shadow detail without, it really seems to have the best thing in its ability to capture shadow detail and highlights at the same time. And awesome color. It's just a shame that they've got this shimmering, but that seems to be an effect of doing all this fancy processing while still needing to keep the latency down. This one, yeah. And that's going to bring us to the end of this comparison. I hope you guys got a little bit more insight into how some of these cameras stack up against each other. Other things that you guys have asked for are for me to test on a cloudy day, and not just on a sunny day, especially for you guys who live in, like, I don't know, the UK and Ireland, right, where it's not sunny very often. And also to do some low light testing. For those of you who fly in low light, some of these cameras are definitely going to do better than others. The light sensitivity is very different between them. None of them are targeted as being nighttime cameras, but there's still some are better than others. So I definitely have that on my plate, but the weather's been so nice lately, I haven't had a cloudy day to test on. So I can certainly do the low light testing, though it gets dark every evening pretty much. My conclusions for this one. My conclusions about the Monster didn't change. I tweaked all the settings. I kind of knew that would happen because I tweaked them all the last time too. So, all right, enough about that. I didn't like it. It has a very natural looking color and lots of detail. Like, it's got nice resolution, but the muddy lack of detail in the shadows, I just feel like the dynamic range is not up to par on what some of these other cameras can do. I'd rather fly something like the Rotor Riot Swift than the Monster. It has less resolution, but it's a rock solid camera. Anyway, very flyable. The two winners for me, though, clearly are the Predator and the Eagle 2 Pro. They do things a little differently and produce a little bit different image, but they both produce a spectacular image. The Eagle 2 Pro is better in terms of dynamic range. The Predator is just a really rock-solid image with great colors, dark blacks, lots of resolution, but not extra spectacular dynamic range. I also have to point out, though, that the Eagle 2 Pro, you've been seeing it in widescreen 16:9, which is its native aspect ratio. It can be set to 4:3, but then you get like a 140-degree field of view instead of 170. And that's not great. So if I were going to go with the Eagle 2 Pro, I might try to get a wider angle lens to put on it so I can run it in 4:3, which is what my goggles are and what I prefer, and yet still get a nice wide angle. If you have 16:9 goggles, though, the choice is pretty obvious. I think the Eagle 2 Pro is a clear choice. People told me in the comments that they asked Foxeer, are you going to make a 16:9 version of the Predator? And Foxeer said basically no. And that's probably not like them just being mean. It probably has something to do with their ability to source the parts that they need, the sensors and so on, I don't know, to do what they need to do. That's going to bring us to the end of this video, though. Product links are down in the video description, as always, if you want to check these out yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, thank you so much for watching. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you watching. And, yeah, despite the fact that sometimes I'm a little annoyed at some of your comments, it's usually because you're right. And you're making me do more work. But, hey, when work is this fun, what can you do? Thanks for watching. Happy flying.